Right, please work this week, laptop. Just work. Yes, hello and welcome to this week's Women's Football Chat. My name is Chris Gadsby. I'm here every Thursday at 6 p.m, bringing you the very latest from the third and fourth tiers of women's football here in England. That's the FA Women's National League. My apologies for not getting a show out last week. I had many things... significantly, my car, which failed its MOT, came back with a list of things as long as your arm that needed doing. So I had to get that in and sorted all of Thursday. So I wasn't at home able to record. Then 45 minutes into the recording on Friday, my laptop decided that it didn't want to work as a laptop anymore. And it was like, no recording anymore. And yeah, so I ended up with not a show last week. So apologies for that, but we're back this week, hopefully. If you're watching and listening to this, then it's all worked perfectly well. So plenty to go through. I'm going to focus on the past 7 days rather than the past 14 days, because that would make the show ridiculously long, given what's coming up we've got to talk about. But I am going to go back a week at the moment and just talk about Halifax, because they released a statement last week that Hokulani Limited has acquired a stake in the club for an undisclosed fee. And the director and principal investor, Daniel Loitz, has said the world is looking at the development of women's football in the UK with envy at the moment. It has always been my dream to support a club in the homeland of football, having lived in the UK for 10 years. My family and I have distributed donations and sponsorship to women's football in Ukraine, Finland, Romania and Germany through companies they control. And now he's a private individual since 2021, and he wanted to acquire a stake in a women's football club in the UK, and he has gone with Halifax. Halifax say this is an exciting and positive step forward for the club and everyone involved. Our vision for the future and the environment we want to create will allow us to continue to compete whilst developing talented young players. We are delighted to be part of the Hokulani family and begin a new adventure together. Great statement. The thing I find interesting is from Mr. Lloyds, who says that in the long term, promotion to the championship is a declared goal. Reaching for the Women's Super League is an unrealistic goal that does not fit into the club's future identity. The declared goal in the next few years is to move to Halifax and build their own sports facility with a small stadium. So it's interesting that you see so many clubs that come out and maybe they get this investment and they go, we'd love to be in the Super League. That's the ultimate dream. Whereas Halifax have come out and said, actually, that's not realistic for us to go into a league and be competing all the time against your Man Cities, Chelsea's, Arsenal's, all the rest of it. And they say, no, we're aiming for the championship. And maybe if they get to the championship and they stay 3 or 4 years in there, maybe the goals will change somewhat. But I think it's a strong move from Halifax to say, no, we're not going to go right for the top straight away. We've got to build, and they want their dedicated sports facility. So we'll have to see over the next few months, kind of if anything happens from that. Do they sign players? Do they just consolidate so far? Maybe more into next season, you might see the benefits of this. But that's from last week and from Halifax. So let's move in to this week and things that have happened here. We will start with Doncaster Rovers Bells, who have announced that both the manager and the head coach have left. Sam Winch and Alexandra Brito Noguera have left their positions as manager and head coach. The decision follows a meeting of the Bells board where there was a unanimous decision that a change was required following a disappointing start to the season. Now, that disappointing start to the season in Division 1 North. Obviously, Doncaster Rovers Bells, having just missed out on promotion from the Midlands, find themselves in 9th in Division 1 North, having only won 2 of their first 7 games, and they only find themselves 3 points off the bottom of the table. Doncaster Rovers Bells Chief Executive Chris Wood has said that without a shadow of a doubt, both Sam and Alex have thrown themselves into their roles. However, unfortunately, it has become evident in recent weeks, despite their endeavour, both the standards of training sessions expected and results on the pitch are not keeping up with their expectations. As part of our desire to get Bells back up the football pyramid, at the start of the season we set a number of objectives for the team and the club as a whole. With the support we have through Club Doncaster, etc. They were challenging but realistic, including building a team capable of competing for promotion within the next few seasons, improving the pathway for girls from Doncaster to play for the Bells, increasing the fan base and improving the experience. However, on the pitch, it is clear we are falling short of the standards we were expecting, and having spoken with the players, they were supportive of the decision the Bells board have made. In the interim, the ETC centre manager Sean Hurd will lead the first team, supported by former Bells manager Paul Edmonds in an advisory role. Paul will be well known to most, if not all, Bells supporters as the most celebrated coach in Bells history, with 1 Premier League title and 4 FA Cup wins. So, change in charge at Doncaster. Change in charge as well at Haywards Heath Town. Nick Bolt has been appointed as women's first team manager. He was brought in for the last few games to help him through the interim period, and they've seen a great reaction from the players towards him and his messaging. So the club feel he is the right person to lead them forward. He will be assisted by Steve Hadfield, and the club are delighted to have them both on board. Nick has said, Haywards Heath have entrusted me as manager and Stephen Hadfield as my assistant to further the progress of this fantastic club. After being with the team prior, I've made Brooke Garcia club captain and Megan Curran and May Golden as vice captains, and he would like to thank Steve Isherwood and Dave Cole for believing in the process and culture change that he felt was needed for the group. He looks forward to representing the club alongside Jay Lovett and the men's team, who no doubt we as a new group will have much to learn from. So, yeah, great. A new appointment there. The interim manager comes in and then gets it full time. So that's great for Haywards Heath Town. And then we're going to finish with another removal of manager. This from Abingdon United, who put out a statement saying, due to social media and public speculation, we can confirm that Mark Overall has had to leave his role as women's goalkeeping coach. We, as a club with our players, have decided to keep this quiet and amicable, but due to communications with the club from external personnel and social media publications, which the person has released when we have stayed silent, we feel we have to release that he has been relieved of his duties, and reasons are confidential between the club, as we have done from the beginning. We wish Mark all the best in the future. We will not be discussing this matter any further. We would appreciate it if you don't approach any players or staff regarding the matter. Now just having a goalkeeping coach leave is not something I normally cover on the show, but it was the way that the statement came out just seemed a little bit just seemed a little bit odd. So we won't go into it any further. Haven't contacted the club as they haven't asked, but that's the situation there. So Abingdon's goalkeeping coach is gone. We've had Doncaster's managers go. We've had manager come into Haywards Heath Town. And yes, the new investment from Halifax. Right, so that's kind of covering the news, really. So let's move on and let's have a look at the results from the past 7 days. We're going to start, as we always do, in the Northern Premier Division. Huddersfield Town 0, Derby County 4. Goals in this one for Derby away from home. Eleanor Ashton in the 26th minute. A brace for Amy Sims, 53rd and 90+1, and one for Rebecca May in the 58th minute. So Derby, a 4-0 victory away at Huddersfield Town. 0-0 between Newcastle and Burnley. That was the game that everybody was watching with intent to see how they would do there. Of course, they drew 1-1 after normal time in the Cup before Newcastle went on to win it in extra time. And so Burnley this time again hold them away from home in a 0-0 draw. Nottingham Forest 5, Liverpool Feds 0, convincing victory for Forest. This is the game that was supposed to happen a few weeks ago and got postponed. A hat-trick for Charlotte Greengrass, 16th, 19th and 49th minute, supported by Natalie Johnson in the 73rd and Molly Green in the 77th minute. So a 5-0 victory for Forest. What that means for the Northern Premier Division table is that Burnley remain top. They are 7 points clear of Wolves in second, but Wolves have got 2 games in hand. They are also 7 points clear of Newcastle, but Newcastle have 3 in hand. Stoke City remain in fourth. Are dropped down to fourth because Newcastle got that point with Burnley. But they have played the same number of games as Burnley. Forest are in fifth. They are upper place after beating Liverpool Feds. They are 8 points back, but have 2 games in hand, so 2 points back really. And with the game for Newcastle as well, if they win that with the game in hand, then that's going to be 4 points. So it is actually quite close at the top. I think just the number of games difference is kind of skewing the table ever so slightly. Down towards the bottom, Derby County up 3 places with that victory. So Stourbridge, Halifax and West Bromwich Albion all drop a place. And at the bottom, it is still Huddersfield Town in 11th and AFC Fylde in 12th. Huddersfield just with that 1 win to their name so far this season. AFC Fylde yet to win. Do have a couple of draws, but yet to win this season. There is that 4-point gap now between the bottom 2 and the rest. Plus, West Brom and Halifax both have games in hand, and a significant number of games in hand in Halifax's case over that bottom 2. So we might start to see, maybe not in the next few weeks, because as you can see from the whiteboard behind me, I know it's not particularly clear, but with Cup this weekend, next weekend, then a weekend of League, then a County Cup, then Cup again, and the weather being like it is and postponements inevitable, we could end up with teams not playing a league game for quite some time. But that's the situation in the Northern Premier Division. Let's have a look at the Southern Premier Division, where Cardiff City drew with Chatham Town with 1-1 in that one. Cardiff City, I believe, took the lead in this one. Libby Piggott, yes, they did, in the 16th minute. Chatham Town haven't got their lineup up on full time yet. That's a fine. But it was a superb free kick from Jeffkins in the 24th minute, right into the top corner. If you haven't seen the footage, go and search it out because it's a great free kick. And that proved to be the end of the scoring, 1-1 between Cardiff and Chatham. And then in the only other game in the Southern Premier Division, Portsmouth beat Plymouth by 3-1. Goals in this one, Portsmouth taking the lead, Bethany Lumsden in the 16th minute. Plymouth equalising 10 minutes into the second half through Charlotte Whitmore, but then Portsmouth just turned it on again. Bethany Lumsden with her second 3 minutes later to give them the lead back again, and Sophie Quirk in the 78th minute doubled Portsmouth's advantage and made them run out 3-1 winners. What that means for the Southern table, not a huge amount because there weren't a huge amount of games, but Hashtag United still at the top. 3 points clear of Portsmouth, but Portsmouth have a game in hand and a vastly superior goal difference than Hashtag United. Rugby Borough dropped down to third, but they are only 3 points back and we're only a third of the way through the season. Then all still the same in the middle because Ipswich, Milton Keynes, Oxford, Billericay, Cheltenham, all the same. It was the teams towards the bottom that played. All those teams from 4th to 8th didn't. So Cardiff go above Plymouth with their draw with Chatham Town. 3 points clear now, Cardiff, of the drop. With a game in hand. Plymouth also 3 points clear and also have that game in hand despite losing to Portsmouth. London Bees still at the bottom as with just 1 draw to their name. Chatham Town with just 3 draws to their name. So both of those sides yet to get off the mark this season. Right, Division 1 South East then. 3 games in Division 1 South East. There was nothing in the Midlands or the North this week. Because it was also a County Cup weekend. So a lot of teams were playing in the County Cup, which is why we've got such a short schedule in terms of league fixtures. AFC Sudbury 1, AFC Wimbledon 2. Goals in this one. AFC Wimbledon took a 2-0 lead thanks to Ashley Hinks in the first half, 32 minutes in, and Eleanor Dorey in the second half on 55 minutes. Sudbury then do get one back, though, through Maisie Goodwin in the 66th, but they were unable to get the second goal to take anything out of that game. The Cambridge derby that was originally scheduled for the opening day of the season when the Women's World Cup final was on ended in a 0-0 draw, but both sides finished with 10. Sophie Mulvihill for Cambridge City sent off and Frances Steele sent off for Cambridge United. And finally, for Division 1 South East, Queen's Park Rangers beating Haywards Heath Town by 2-1. Despite Haywards Heath taking the lead, May Goulden in the 9th minute had put them in front, but that lasted only 5 minutes. Alice Kerr getting the equaliser for QPR on the 14th minute, and then they nick a winner right at the end, Laura Hennessy in the 90th minute, giving Queen's Park Rangers all 3 points. What it means for the table, and in a similar situation, the teams at the top kind of won, the teams at the bottom didn't. So AFC Wimbledon, with their victory over AFC Sudbury, they go top of the table, 1 point clear of Norwich City. Worthing are still in third. They didn't play this weekend, but they have a game in hand over those top two. So they could pull themselves level on points, though their goal difference is it would have to be a big win to take the top spot. Cambridge United with their point go above Ashford Town. Queen's Park Rangers with their 3 points jump above Actonians. So Cambridge City got a point there but remain at the bottom. Haywards Heath Town lost, so they remain in the relegation zone. And AFC Sudbury remain 10th after their defeat to Wimbledon. So that's the situation in Division 1 South East. Again, you can start to see we're getting a bit of separation between these teams now. 4 points between 6th and 8th, so it's not as easy to move up the table as it was. It's not a case of win a game and you jump up 4 places anymore. We're starting to see that separation. You look at AFC Sudbury, they're in 10th. It's already a 5 point gap to 7th, so you feel as though Sudbury may well be looking over their shoulders for a decent chunk of the season. And you're starting to see, who the front runners and riders are in these divisions. You look at Wimbledon, for example, at the top, and this goes for a lot of the league tables as well. If you go and have a look at them, Wimbledon are now, as near as makes no difference, a third of the way through the season. They've only dropped 3 points. If you keep that kind of momentum going, which we have seen before, most seasons, you tend to only be dropping 10, a dozen points, something like that. Then you look at some of the teams further down. You look at Queen's Park Rangers. They've already dropped 12 points this season. They would have to go perfect the rest of the season. Ashford Town, they have dropped 7 points. They need to be pretty perfect. Cambridge United, they've dropped 9 points. They would have to be almost perfect the rest of the season to mount a title challenge. So even though the league table looks close, you look at how things start developing and how they've moved and gone on in previous seasons, and you think, if you can only afford to drop 9-10 points, you've already dropped 7 of them. You really are starting to run out of time if you want to mount a title challenge, and that's just the way that the leagues tend to fall here in the FAWNL. Right, Southwest results then. There's only 2 here before we get on to fixtures. So in Division 1 Southwest, big win for Exeter City, a 6-1 victory over Southampton women. Goals in this one, Ishbel Zermond in the 11th minute had put Exeter in front. It were 3-0 up at half-time. Jenna Markham with her first of the game and Jessica Sandland getting goals in the first half. 3-0 at half-time. Southampton women's get one back. Erin Bloomfield in the 55th minute getting that one back for Southampton. But then Jenna Markham with her second of the game in the 59th minute. She would go on to complete a hat-trick in the 79th. And Amber Pollock in the 72nd minute rounded off the... Well, it was Markham rounded off the scoring, but Amber Pollock getting one as well. 6-1 the victory for Exeter City. over Southampton Women's. And then Swindon Town against AFC Bournemouth, 3-2 victory for Bournemouth. Pretty kind of back and forth game this one though. Katie James in the 25th minute had put Bournemouth ahead. Ellie Strippel in the 32nd minute got Swindon back level. Bournemouth went one ahead again. Helen Blezard just before half time on the 40th minute mark, 2-1. Then they went 3-1 in front in the 48th minute through Blezard again. But Georgia Clifford before the hour mark made it 3-2. So it was a close game all the way to the end. But Bournemouth able to hold on and get all 3 points. What that means for the Division 1 South West table, nobody has moved because the teams at the top in Bournemouth and Exeter won. So they just extend their lead towards the top. Bournemouth still perfect, 8 out of 8, 24 points. Exeter perfect, 7 out of 7, 21 points. Swindon, of course, lost to Bournemouth, remain in third. And Southampton Women, who lost to Exeter, remain in ninth. Nobody else played, so nobody else has moved. It does feel like it's going to be a 2-horse race between Bournemouth and Exeter already, because you've got 2 teams that are perfect, and you've got Swindon, who have dropped 8 points. You've got Keynsham, who have dropped 8 points. And you're thinking, other than the 2 games against each other, you're looking where are Bournemouth and Exeter going to drop points? The caveat to that is that this is exactly the same as what Cardiff did last season in Division 1 South West. They were perfect 10 out of 10, I believe, or 9 out of 9. And then after Christmas, the wheels kind of fell off at Cardiff a little bit. They were able to still go up. They did hold Exeter off in the end, but it did make for a very exciting end to the season. So that is the situation there in Division 1 South West. Now, there is one more game before we go on to fixtures to talk about, and that was the postponed first round of the plate game between Chorley and York City. They played that last weekend. It went to a penalty shootout after 0-0 at the end of 120 minutes, but York City win by 5-4 in the penalty shootout, and they go on to face Sutton Coldfield Town in round 2 in a couple of weeks. But that's going to cover all of the results. Let's now go on to the fixtures. Fixtures then in the Northern Premier Division this week. You've got AFC Fylde against Derby County. That is 12th against 7th. Of course, AFC Fylde at home at Kellermoor Park, but yet to get off the mark this season. Halifax against Nottingham Forest. Halifax in 9th, Forest in 5th. Forest will be definitely targeting this game. They need to get 3 points from it to keep that pressure up towards the top. Huddersfield against Newcastle United at the Stafflex. Huddersfield down in 11th. Newcastle not perfect anymore, of course. They have dropped 2 points with that draw to Burnley, but you have to feel that Newcastle will probably take the 3 points from that game. Liverpool Feds against Stourbridge, 6th against 8th. Could be a cracking game there at Jericho Lane. 2 teams mid-table, capable of putting a good result together as we've seen. Also capable of getting beaten heavily. Be interesting to see what happens there. Stoke City against Burnley. This is 4th against 1st, but Stoke, as we've said before, their position slightly elevated at the moment because of the lack of extra games, but it is only Forest below them that have enough games to overtake them. Halifax as well, I suppose, but they're 6 points behind with 3 games in hand. And they're all the way down in 9th at the moment. But Stoke, a comfortable mid-table side so far this season. Burnley top of the table. Again, you would think Burnley probably going to be the ones to take the 3 points from that game. It looks most likely that your Burnleys, Newcastle Forests will probably all win this weekend. But of course, it's football. You never really know. And then the big game in the Northern Premier Division this season, West Bromwich Albion against Wolves. That is 10th against 2nd. But of course, the form goes completely out the window. It is the derby. It's a 3 p.m. kickoff there. So if you're planning on going to that game, it's 3 p.m, not 2 p.m. Wolves in 2nd, wanting to keep that pressure up at the top, of course. West Brom desperate to increase the gap between themselves and the bottom 2. So a full programme in the Northern Premier Division, weather depending. Moving through into the Southern Premier Division, again a full programme. Billericay Town against Cheltenham Town. That is 7th against 8th. Two sides with very similar starts to the seasons. The difference really is in the goals. Cheltenham Town with a -15 goal difference. Billericay Town with a +2. Billericay Town score much more than Cheltenham and they concede much less. So if you are going to can go one way or the other, maybe Billericay by a goal or two. Cardiff City against Milton Keynes Dons, 9th against 5th. Again, Cardiff really wanting to increase that gap between themselves and the bottom two, and they are playing at home. Milton Keynes Dons are 7 points back from #United. This is the sort of game for Milton Keynes Dons. If they want to push on and hope there are slip-ups elsewhere in the league later on in the season, this is the sort of game Milton Keynes Dons have to be winning. London Bees against Oxford. London Bees, yet to get a win this season. Oxford had a difficult start, recovering it somewhat. They are now 6th in the league and within touching distance of those teams higher up. Rugby Borough against Portsmouth. Probably the game of the day in the Southern Premier Division. 3rd against 2nd. One of them are obviously one or both is going to drop some points, and #United, who are taking on 10th place Plymouth Argyle, come on to that in a moment, will certainly be looking to take full advantage of that. Chatham Town against Ipswich Town. That is 11th against 4th at the Sports Ground, and #United against Plymouth Argyle, 1st against 10th. That game is a 2:30 start. So again, a later kickoff there for # against Plymouth. But it is very much, take the odd one or two games out of it. You've got the two top teams there, Portsmouth and Rugby in 2nd and 3rd. Then you've got Chatham in 11th, Ipswich in 4th, so it's kind of a top versus bottom. #Plymouth 1st and 10th, kind of again a top versus bottom sort of situation. So an opportunity for some of the teams at the top to get an extra 3 points. Portsmouth against Rugby, for me, the one to watch, particularly away. Portsmouth, with that game in hand over #, will really be wanting to keep the pressure on because they will want to get level with # when they do play that game in hand. It's only Tier 3 that are taking part in league fixtures this weekend, because we have finally got to the point of the season where the FA Cup comes into play for the FAWNL. Now, this is still the 3rd qualifying round, but it is where all of the Tier 4 teams, all 48 of them, take part in the FA Cup this season. So let's make a start going through the FA Cup. There are 88 ties in general. We're only going into detail on the 40 ties that involve FAWNL sides, this being an FAWNL-centric show. So we're only going to look in detail at those. But then I have got a list of all the other ones. So if there are any more that are local to you, maybe you want to see Tier 6 against Tier 7 because it is down the road from you, then you will be able to do that as well. So 5th tier Bury against 4th tier Norton and Stockton Ancients. We should also point out this is regionalised at this stage as well. 7th tier Guisborough Town hosting Stockport County of Division 1 North at Howbeck Road. All tier 4 tie between Middlesbrough and Hull City. That's an all Division 1 North tie. 6th tier Poulton Victoria against 4th tier Chorley. 5th tier Tranmere Rovers against Chester Le Street Town, again of Division 1 North. All of these are Division 1 North because it's regionalised, and that's just the order that the FA wrote the fixtures down in. York City against Hull United in a 4th versus 5th tie, and then in a 4th versus 6th tie, Durham Sestra against Bolton Wanderers. SC United of Manchester take on Cheadle Town Stingers of Tier 5. Leeds United take on Chester of Tier 6. Tier 6 Wythenshawe host Barnsley, and Tier 5 Crusaders host Sutton Coldfield Town. Antibridge War Memorial of Tier 6 host Boldmere St Michael's. Notts County take on Loughborough Lightning in an all Division 1 Midlands tie. And Lichfield City, who are in Tier 5, host Lincoln City of the Division 1 Midlands. Inkbarrow Eagles, a Tier 7 side, take on Leafield Athletic. Doncaster Rovers Bells of Division 1 North take on Mansfield Town. As I said, it's regionalised. So obviously because Doncaster Rovers Bells had to move laterally from Midlands to North because of the teams that came down from Tier 3 last season, they are kind of in the Midlands pool of teams, so to speak, even though they're playing in the North. Solihull Moors against Port Vale, that's Port Vale are Tier 6. Northampton Town against Coventry Sphinx of Tier 5. Leek Town against Solihull Sporting, also of Tier 5. Shrewsbury Town against Sheffield, that is Tier 5 against Tier 4 at the Community Pitch. And Sporting Cowser against Kidderminster Harriers, Tier 4 against Tier 5. Carrying on then with the FAWNL sides, Cambridge United against AFC Sudbury, an all Tier 4 tie, as is London Seaward against Norwich City, as is Cambridge City against Peterborough United, as is Worthing against AFC Wimbledon. So plenty of Tier 4 sides will find themselves knocked out in this first round. There are 8 all Tier 4 ties. Actonians take on Fulham at Rectory Park, and Ashford Town take on AFC Whiteleaf of Tier 6 at the Robert Parker Stadium. Chesham United take on Sittingbourne at the Meadow. Chelsea against Bromley. Bromley might be looking for a little bit of an upset there. Chelsea, of course, not had a good start to the season. They are currently on minus 58 goals from their 7 games. They lost to Brighton's Academy in the County Cup last weekend as well. So it's not been a good start to the season for Chelsea. But that goal that they scored there against Brighton, they lost by 5-1, was the first goal that Chelsea have scored this season in the County Cup. So, they've played 9 games this season. They've scored 1 goal. So Bromley, keep an eye on that one because there is a potential upset there. 7th tier Richmond and Kew take on Maidenhead United at Riverside Drive. Haywards Heath Town take on Queen's Park Rangers in an all Tier 4 tie. Bitton against Southampton Women's is 6th tier Bitton against 4th tier Southampton. Abingdon United against QK Southampton. They're a 7th tier side. Abingdon United will be looking to get into the first round. Bridgewater United against Forest Green Rovers is 4th against 5th. And Keynsham Town against Bournemouth Sports, again 4th against 5th tier. Then we go on to the final page that involves FAWNL sides. Exeter City against Torquay United, all Tier 4, of course. Liskeard Athletic of Tier 5 take on Swindon Town of Tier 4. AFC Bournemouth take on AFC St Austell. AFC St Austell, of course, in Division 1 South West last season. So those two sides met last season in the league. Bournemouth, though, perfect against an AFC St Austell side that's a mid-table Tier 5 now this season. That's at the Macro Community Stadium. Portishead Town take on United Services Portsmouth of Tier 7 at Bristol Road. And finally, Moneyfields take on 6th tier side Gloucester City in the final tie that is involving an FAWNL side. Other fixtures in the third qualifying round then. Interesting one at the top there. Birtley Town against Leeds Modernians. An all 7th tier side. So we're guaranteed a 7th tier side in the first round of the Cup. There are plenty of other kind of all tier 6 ties or 6 versus 7 ties. So we've got that one guaranteed tier 7 side in the first round. Then there are at least 13, that's including that all tier 7 side, tier 6 or below sides that are guaranteed to be in the first round draw for the FA Cup, which is when the Tier 3 sides come into the competition. So, plenty to keep your eye on. That is the first page, and these are all localised as well. That's the first page of extras, and this is the second page of extras. So, there are, as I said again, plenty of Tier 6 against Tier 7 ties, some all Tier 5 ties, and quite a lot. 88 ties in total. So we will have 88 teams in the first round, plus 24 from Tier 3, gives us 112. They then go down into the second round, we have 56. Then into the third round, we've got 28. Then at the fourth round stage, the championship sides come in, the 12 of those, to give us 40 teams. That then goes down to 20. And then when you add in the Super League sides to get you to 32, and then you go 16, 8, 4, 2. So you're still quite a few rounds away from drawing one of the big teams. But it's a dream for many of these sides. Usually an FAWNL side does quite well. Ipswich did well. Was it last year or the year before? I'll be honest, I can't remember now. I've got to just shy of the quarterfinals or in the quarterfinals. I can't remember now. I'll be honest. But normally an FAWNL side does do well in the FA Cup. And of course, with the increased money going into the FA Cup this season as well, then some of these sides, getting to the first round really does give them, several £1,000s that really does help these sides out. So that's the FA Cup third qualifying round. If you want to have a look at those fixtures in a little bit more detail, then feel free to go back, pause the video, have a look, write them down. But that will do it for this week's Women's Football Chat. So next week we'll have a look back at those FA Cup results plus those results in the league as well, and we'll look ahead to the second round of the Cup and Plate. Now, I suspect that it is going to get very messy over the next few weeks, because looking at the weather and what the weather is forecasted, particularly on some of these Tier 5, Tier 6, Tier 7 pitches, I think we might get some postponements. FA Cup takes precedent over the League Cup, so that would push the FA Cup back. Then we've got the first round of the FA Cup you've got to get in. Well, maybe those games get pushed because of not being able to play the pitches. Then you've got County Cup, which takes precedence over that. We could well see teams not playing a league game for a long time now. So the league tables don't think will change too much. We might end up with the odd game here or there, because as you can see at the moment, no games scheduled at all for the 12th of November, which is round 1 day. Very few for the 19th, which is County Cup day. And then the 26th of November, no games are scheduled as well. That's FA Cup round 2 day. But by the time we get to that, some teams will be knocked out. They might be able to get a fixture in. So it's going to get very messy. But we will keep across it here on the Women's Football Chat, a dedicated show to the third and fourth tiers of women's football here in England. Predictor League, that's going strongly. I'm doing terribly in Predictor League, so don't come to me for advice. Womensfootballchat.wordpress.com for more articles. Now the wedding and everything like that is out the way, I'll get back into that a bit more. Although I am having to do less of that. The whole reason I started that was because the league did so little. Now the league is doing so well with the social media, getting the articles out quickly, midweek stuff that they didn't used to do, bits and pieces like that. It's kind of becoming less of a necessity for me to do it as well. But yeah, I had a lot on, obviously, with the wedding, honeymoon, sorting then all the wedding stuff out and blah, blah, blah. So should be back up to speed with that. So womensfootballchat.wordpress.com for more articles, the Predictor League, the tables, all that sort of thing. But thank you very much for watching and or listening, of course, to this week's Women's Football Chat. I'll be back next Thursday at 6 p.m, bringing you the very latest from the third and fourth tiers of women's football here in England, and the laptop held up for another week. Thank you very much for watching and or listening to this week's Women's Football Chat, and goodbye.